Hi, and welcome once again to Stone Soup.
The world according to sci-fi geeks.
Sci-fi geeks like scones. They like scones a lot. They like to have tea parties at conventions. We're going to make some scones today. This is a different type of scone. This is an orange. It's called Sweetie Pie's Orange Breakfast Scones.
It's another recipe we found in the paper and went,
So here we go. It's a science experiment. We have never even tried to make these before.
Nope.
So it starts with 1 2/3 cups of all-purpose flour. It says to do it in a mixer with a paddle, which is why we're using this mixer. Otherwise, we'd be using a glass bowl so you could see this
like we
better.
usually do.
Like we usually.
And if you wondered, this is what a paddle attachment is.
Yes. The next ingredient is 1 1/3 cups of cake flour. That's a total of 3 cups of flour.
Now, I do wonder why they'd have two different kinds of flour, because, most baked goods, you only get one.
That would be because they wanted something that was finer than the all-purpose flour, but coarser than the cake flour.
I can see that. There's supposed to be a special kind of flour that is between them, but it's like impossible to find. So.
Now, there's not a lot of sugar considering how much flour there is. It's 1/4 of a cup of sugar. I think that's what it was. Does that say 1/4 of a cup?
Yeah.
1/4 of a cup of sugar.
But don't worry.
But you see, don't worry because these suckers have sugar sprinkled on the top before you bake them, and then you ice them after you bake them.
That seems a little redundant or something to me, a little much.
Okay, then you have 3 1/4 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I like a teeny tiny amount of salt,
Yes.
but that's just me.
She is particularly sensitive to the taste of salt, so it's very easy for something to taste too salty to her.
Yes, plus 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons. 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons of cold butter. And that's what this is, cut in pieces.
Cubes.
Now, somehow or other, I usually do this with a pastry blender, but somehow or other, this is going to... I need something to scrape this out with. Doesn't want to let go. Oh, there, got it.
Oh.
Never mind. And I'm going to put this down and very carefully start this to go. It says it's going to take about 3 minutes to turn this into a kind of a mealy mixture. In the meantime,
Right. I will be combining wet ingredients. I have here 1 egg. Just one. Also a little odd to my knowledge of baking, but what the hell. So, 1 egg.
timer.
Haha. Let's see, how much is
Timer.
this? Right. 1/4 cup plus 3 tablespoons of half and half. Fold in gently. Fold. No. And what will be 3/4 of a teaspoon of orange juice. As I briefly just double check my measurements. When you're cooking, especially with a brand new recipe, always double check.
Yeah.
Yes, 3/4
This is
teaspoon.
working real cool. Never done
How
this
about
one.
that? Here you go, 3/4. And if I get a little extra orange juice in there,
Probably isn't going to hurt anything.
now I'll just mix that up with a whisk.
Where'd the timer go? Wow, it's only been doing it for a minute. It don't look to me like it's going to take 3, but...
When mixing up something with an egg, I actually usually find that it works a little better if I, scramble the egg, so to speak, first. But this works too.
Well, scrambling the egg wouldn't have been a bad idea. Look at that. You're getting a lovely mixture, my dear. Now, I just got to...
I can't even imagine what that must taste like.
cream.
Huh. And, okay. So you wind up
Okay.
basically with a very pale orange cream.
Now, this is interesting because that said about 3 minutes.
Huh.
According to this, we haven't even gotten down to 1 minute and a half, maybe. But this sucker is done.
Fascinating.
Now, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Can't even taste the orange juice in that. I need something. Oh, yeah. That's perfect.
Okay,
That
you're
is
supposed to add the zest next.
Yes, I know. This is 2 tablespoons of, where does it say? Oh, yes. 2 tablespoons of orange zest, freshly zested. She just did them. We got some orange. We got naked oranges back there we're going to have to eat. All blushing and ashamed.
Yes.
Now I have to blend that properly before we add anything else. Or some of them will have orange zest in them and some of them won't. This is amazing. Now, there we go.
Let me see here.
Now it calls for half or a quarter of a cup of currants. I don't have any currants and I don't like them anyway, so I'm not going to put that in. I think this time we just won't put anything in. Maybe next time we'll try, I don't know, pecans or something. Or craisins. Orange and cranberry go very well together.
This is true. But for right now, they're just going to be orange. Now, most of the time when you're trying a new recipe, you shouldn't just go around leaving out ingredients. But in this case, it won't actually affect anything, because mostly when you're worried about leaving out ingredients, what you're worried about is affecting the texture. And the currants will add flavor, but they won't actually affect the texture, since they're dried.
Yeah.
Well, if they were juicy fruit, that'd be an issue.
That would be an issue, but like you say, they're just, it's like with nuts. If you leave the nuts out, you just don't have nuts. You don't change anything else. Okay, wow.
Well, it smells orangey in here.
Does it? Okay.
That'll be it.
With the mixer running slowly, add the liquid ingredients until incorporated.
Generally, that sort of thing means pour it in slowly, don't just whoosh.
Yeah. Okay. We start the mixer again. Okay, that is as slowly as it goes. So it says slowly pour it in.
I think.
With the mixer running, comma, slowly add the, okay.
Yeah.
And what's it say?
Let me see.
Until incorporated. Careful not to overmix. Looks like we're there. I've never done this with a mixer before. I used to do it by hand, by and large.
I would say who knew, but the answer is big bakeries.
Yeah. Of course, because you can't.
I mean, you can't, be making, muffins and scones and what have you to be sold by the bulk if you're mixing them by hand.
Okay, now we need a little flour on here.
Radio.
This is interesting. It's very dry.
Maybe you should have mixed it a little bit more.
No, it's supposed to be dry, so.
Oh. You.
Lightly floured. There we go.
Okay. That good?
Okay. Now, it's not really. I'll smack you silly. See? Crumbly.
She said before that sci-fi geeks like scones. Well, the more correct statement is sci-fi geeks like baked goods.
Boy, howdy. Oh, get rid of that, please. And now I have to work this into a single mass. Not too much. If you overwork your scones, you get tough, flat scones. This is very dry. Now, this is an interesting recipe on many, many levels.
What is it?
Yes, would you get me a knife for cutting, please? It's kind of dry. It wants to flake off on you. Hopefully that means you'll have a flaky scone.
Yes.
Come on.
Flaky is good.
Say what?
Flaky is good.
Flaky is good. And how many scones you get just kind of depends on how you cut it. I'm going to cut it to make 8.
Unlike, say, cookies, you actually just take a knife and cut up dough for a scone.
You can use cookie cutters if you want to make special shapes like stars or something.
Well, yes. I mean, you may recall the last scones we did, which were from those cooking mystery books. They were scooped out. That's actually unusual for scones.
Yeah, it is.
This is what you mostly do.
The scooped out was so wet that you couldn't work it, like I just did. So but that's interesting because scones go from one end of the spectrum to the other. This is so dry it's almost crumbly, and it hasn't been baked yet.
Thick, though.
Yeah. Whereas like we were saying, the ones from the Hannah Swenson books are so wet that you have to scoop them out. And that's my 8 scones.
Ta-da!
And I just got a lovely taste of orange. Now, take a cookie sheet lined with a silpat and or, what's the stuff?
The paper.
Yeah, parchment paper.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, hold yourself together. Pull yourself together, boy. 7, 8. Now, the next step is interesting. We need a little bit of, heavy cream, please.
Right.
By the way, I made my own half and half. There's no point in buying half and half and heavy cream, which is what this calls for. It's just, please. If you've got heavy cream and you've got milk, you just put half of each in the bowl, stir it up, and you got half and half.
Heavy cream.
Heavy cream. Little bowl, please. Do we have anything to brush with?
Brush. Excuse me. How about this?
That'll work. Pastry brush. Now you brush them. Most scones that I've ever seen, you give them an egg bath before you sugar them, before you cook them. Well, these you give a cream bath. Yeah, it's good for your complexion. Cameraman's a wise ass, but be that as it may. Anyway, you brush them with the cream, sprinkle them with the turbinado sugar. Then, you will notice we have not said anything about the oven, because then we have to stick them in the freezer for an hour. Let them freeze. Then you bake them. Then, and this is the real kicker considering what I'm doing right now, you put icing on them. So,
you know, like I said, this is the first time we've ever done this, so we don't actually know what would happen if we were to just, go into the oven. Boom. Presumably they wouldn't cook right.
But knowing us, we're going to try that one of these days. I had half a notion to do 2 batches, one to cook right this minute and one to freeze, and see what the difference was. But I'm being good. I'm going to do it by their recipe exactly the first time. And maybe next time I'll add some orange flavoring and cook half of them immediately and half of them later.
You may recall from some of our other attempts, we're not always
exact.
I hate it when that happens. It felt like a sneeze was about to come on, and it didn't.
At least.
Anyway, rewind. You may recall from some of our previous experiments, we're not always thrilled with how strong the flavor is of some of these baked goods, so we add. I did notice that this particular recipe rather egregiously leaves out vanilla.
Well, they want it to taste like orange. Now, it seems to me that if you add some orange flavoring and some vanilla flavoring, you maybe sort of get orange cream. Now, you have your impeccably clean hands to do this with, or else you have to do it with a spoon. La 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 la. This is going to be interesting, and it's definitely going to make the top very sweet.
This is turbinado sugar.
Turbinado sugar, whatever the heck that means. I think it means extremely coarse.
It's also brown.
Yeah, it's raw. Yeah.
Still has molasses in it, apparently. Wow. Anywho. See, this is the first I've ever heard of this sugar, so.
Well, I've read it. I've read the term in other recipes and not had any idea what they meant. So I went to the supermarket and I actually looked for turbinado sugar. And now we're going to wrap this in saran wrap and stick her in the freezer for an hour.
Which thanks to the magic of editing, you don't
Bye
have to
bye.
wait for.
Yes.
See you in an hour.
Yep. Here we are, fresh out of the oven. Beautiful and big and brown and just as gorgeous as they can be. Now I'm going to put them out on the rack.
Yes. We realized, looking at the instructions, we kind of messed up a little bit. You were supposed to freeze them and then put the cream on top and the sugar, then bake them. But it doesn't seem to have hurt them any, so...
They've been cooling for about 10 minutes in the pan. The instructions from the newspaper did not say, they were not clear. They just said to remove scones and cool on a wire rack. Didn't say whether to remove them from the pan or remove them from the oven.
Mm-hmm. Now, we have here the icing glaze thing.
It consists of, I made it off camera because the director's been yelling at us about time constraints. It's 1 cup of powdered sugar, 2 tablespoons of butter, a tablespoon of orange juice, and the recipe says 2 to 4 tablespoons of milk. This is 1 tablespoon of milk and 1 tablespoon of cream, and it's just a glaze. You kind of paint it on. So, thus and so. Because, you know, it only has sugar on top of it, and there's just not enough sweetness here.
Well, considering there was very little sweetness in the scones themselves...
You know what? I'm going to try something different.
What? That works.
Well, it
sort of works.
And it's faster. There, seeing that, beauteous? I'm going to drip all over my table.
Already are.
Yep. And any spots you don't get that way, you just take your little brush and brush in your crannies.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you want to brush your granny?
Would you take that, please?
Okay. Phew. Now, the newspaper included a calorie count on these things, which is absolutely horrifying.
But then they were thinking of 6. We'd have to divide it by
True.
8. And I guarantee you that this one and this one do not have the same calorie count.
This is true.
So,
Probably just do it.
say what?
Add more glaze, even them out.
The calorie count. Wise ass on the camera says I should add more glaze to the small one and even them out. Yeah, because that's just what they need. As she says, the calorie count was pretty horrifying.
Yes.
And we just said, hell with it. We don't care. Who needs more? You need more. La 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 la.
And there we have...
And there we have beautiful orange scones.
Yes.
Okay. Now comes the, wow. Very, very flaky, very airy. An entirely different texture from anything I've had before with scone. Yeah. It's flaking in our throats. Well, we have to go and eat now. Bye-bye.
They're quite nice. Bye-bye.